What a world, DJ on the mic. What coming in with another banger? And I mean, we had to go to Evo Cup, and I literally initially went in with just get the X-Antibody all out, and we're done. But you know what? We locked in, and we happened to get the actual winner of the event, which is gonna be giving us the Omnimon, which no one uses at all. So you're probably thinking, what deck did I actually pilot? And I must admit, we just went into the old faithful, and we brought old Takado into the mix. You know, we go with the Gallantmon, the standard. So in this video, I'm just going to give you the list of what I ran and give you my thoughts and opinions on any change that I would obviously apply to the list and how the overall event went. So if this is a video for you, then stick around and enjoy. If you're new to the channel, what you see, make sure you subscribe and turn the notification bell, because I do videos on the reg for real, for real. So further ado, let's get up to the list, the good stuff, and all the sauce. What, yes sir? Okay, let's share that winning list. Starting off with the X, 4 of the BT12 Digimon. The reason why is because I do love the, increasing that DP threshold by additional 1k off deletion based effects. Really just quite nice to just get rid of Digimon that the opponent didn't think I could delete, but then I am deleting, which is fantastic right there. And that's the only one that we run. If you do have the EX2 Digimon egg, then run that. Getting that draw also pretty nice there too. So then going over to the rookies, we do run the Gallantmon X-Antibody, just your primary searcher, which is going to order for you to kind of get your pieces. Also your X-Antibody is going to be very crucial. And inheritable, obviously when you delete a Digimon, gain the memory really comes up quite nicely. Then other searcher is going to be the EX2 Gallantmon. Best in slot, honestly. Getting your Takatos is pretty crucial in this list, as well as being able to get pretty much our line, which is also going to be good for us. Obviously stack these two up in tandem, you can obviously get some mad draw and gains from that. And then inheritable is also great in order for Takatos to delete any form of low level body on the opponent's side when we are swinging, which comes clutch. And obviously because we do have Digimon that increase that DP threshold, it means that we can delete higher DP based Digimon there too. And then lastly, we just go in with the BT19 Gallantmon there at 3. One of the changes that I probably would do moving forward will probably run a rush gill. There was definitely a time in the tournament which I wish I did have a rush gill for game, which could have come quite clutch. I did have the cards in trash in total, but unfortunately I just did not run that. I try to keep the list nice and clean, but sometimes nice and clean ain't always great. But regardless, this still come up quite nicely, because it means that I can just effectively just get this running back, and then if I do want to throw down the Gallantmon X-Antibody, I can do, or if I do want to Evo in the back, I also can do as well, because it means that my inheritable for my entire stack of the one in raising is going to be pretty meaty. And then if I did have this in hand, effectively, I just throw this down and get some extra searches. So a lot of kind of plays I hope that I would do with this lineup right there, but I do wish I did at least have one of the rush gill. So I think realistically, probably ditch this one and then run a rush gill on there for next tournament play. But regardless, this actual ratio did come quite nicely. And then let's go over to the champions. Mainstays are going to be the BT19 Gallantmon. Just played out Tamers is always the value back there. Inheritable, once again, further maximizing our DP deletion thresholds by additional 2k is always great, as long as we're at 0 or less, which is always good. Then we do run the BT12 Gallantmon, because once again, we want to get our Tamers out. We do want to get our Tamers out. We do want to get our Takatos out, being quite prevalent. So realistically, if I'm going to be pushing out and I don't have a Tamer out, using this first, without a doubt. Otherwise, if you use this, get a Tamer out, this becomes dead. Regards to its where did you roll for the effect right there. So use this and then this, but sometimes you might just be forced into kind of getting that out first, which is, it is what it is. But regardless, it's accommodating the game plan and making sure that our Tamers are out on the field. And then we do just floor it up with the Gallantmon X-Antibody, because this is just really good when you are stacking on top of this, or you're using the X-Antibody option in order for you to effectively get the maximum of the effect in terms of, making sure that we can play a Gallantmon from trash without paying the cost. And that's obviously a Gallantmon in name there too. Also, the inheritable, gain that memory. We want to be printing memory, we want to plus with deleting Digimon, which is the worth. So That concludes there. Wouldn't necessarily change anything in terms of the ratio right there. It works very well. And I've ran that ratio for pretty much majority of me building this deck. Then going over to the Ultimates. So Ultimates has quite a dramatic change here. So we do run a 4 of the War Gallantmon from BT12. The reason why I've took War Gallantmon Ace is because Source Strip is a menace, and the fact that now Source Strip can just target any Digimon, they will just target the Ace and then get overflow free, which isn't nice. I don't want to give any opponent any value out there, so this is honest, we can just keep it kind of clear cut in regards to, you know, not having any form of aces at lower end. The only ace that we're going to have is basically our top end ace right there, but this just enables us to kind of turbo into our Gallantmons if we need to. On top of that, it does have the, when evolving, we have to delete 4k DP Digimon, which obviously, because we do have the egg, that can be boosted to 5k, which has come up quite nicely. I think the thing that's really good with this is the fact that it's all one effect, which is quite gorgeous in terms of particular matchups, because it is, you know, either pop something, and depending on obviously our stack, we're going to gain effectively what we would have gained from if we didn't. So if you do have the X variants in, you're going to gain 2, which effectively, if you didn't actually pop anything, effectively you would kind of reduce the cost by 1, and then if you do have the Blitzkrieg Staccato, you effectively end of attack, you're able to gain 2, which kind of works out near enough the same. So this is the reason why I just went full on this card, which, to be honest, most lists do. So I just copied as an example right there. And then on top of that, we do just run the free Warground X-Antibody. This, honestly, it's night and day if you do not have this in your stack. Like, it's so strong in regards to what it does. The DP gain is powerful, and the fact that this doesn't even, like, DP gain and not being bot decked or bounced is huge, and that's not even part of the actual X effect. The X effect is just, you know, able to delete a 10k DP Digimon, which is once again fantastic, especially obviously we do have inheritables which can further boost that. It's where the inheritable is. The inheritable just makes night and day with this deck. You can OTK really swiftly, be pretty comfortable if you have this in your stat, because doing 2 checks and then going into X-Antibody and effectively doing another 2 checks and burn 1 is just the freaking nuts right there. If you don't have it in the stack, it can be very slow. It can be very slow, unfortunately. So this is the reason why I'm like, God, maybe I can boost it up to 4, but I think that might be a little bit greedy, because sometimes if you do just happen to have this in your hand and no X-Antibody, it can be quite costly in order to kind of get into it. But I think 3 is the perfect amount. I've always run 3. 3 just works really nicely. Ideally, you do want to go into some form of War Gallantmon and then go into this, and then you're pretty much cooking, because then you're kind of printing memory, because, I mean, Gallantmon likes to delete, and Bandai locked it in and made sure that Gallantmon is going to be deleting something right there. So that concludes there for the level 5s. Now let's go over to the level 6s. Obviously, level 6s not really changed at all, and I think in this day and age, there's a lot of different variants that you can kind of run. Like I say, there's the new X-Antibody kind of line variant that you can run there as well. I just kind of kept it pretty simple in terms of keeping it in archetype. So we do just run the BT17 Gallantmon at 3. Once again, still best Gallantmon that you're gonna get. Unless it says this is a rare, it is pretty nutty. The fact that the when you're rolling and when attacking, it's not once per turn, just means that you can comfortably get a 6k DP, and you also gain the blocker to the end of the opponent's turn. And then if you get 0 or less, this Digimon isn't affected by your opponent's effect, which is just once again great, because when you are swinging in, it means that the security ain't doing shit. So always nice when you are Evo into this, you're swinging quite comfortably. Once again, just gotta make sure that you're at 0 or less. Then we go into the Gallantmon X-Antibody with something at 3, just absolutely main playmaker in order for you to once again do pretty much big damage. If you have the War Gallantmon X-Antibody and this, you're just cruising. You're comfortable, you're eating. The fact that you can order the Wendy's rolling effects of this is quite nice. So if they did happen to throw down a form of rookie down to kind of prevent, you know, you kind of unsuspending, well, I'll just trigger the neg 4k DP if I've either on top of the Gallantmon or have X-Antibody in trait right there, because you do not get that off if you do not meet the condition. Obviously you'll get the boost there too as 4k, and then that's when, if there's no Digimon on the field, effectively you can try to pop a 10k, nothing's there, and then you will unsuspend and trash the top card of the opponent's security. Well, you do the trash first and then unsuspend, which really maximizes on your DP output right there. Then we go in with the medieval at 1. So this, originally I was going to change to the BT13 Gallantmon, but I thought, you know what, I'm so lazy in regards to trying to like changing the sleeve and putting the Gallantmon in there. I thought I'd just roll with it. Just roll with it. It came up. I felt like at the times it came up though, I was a little bit thirsty in terms of the plays, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel like it did cost me a few games kind of evoing into this, and the opponent had an out for it, which is kind of unfortunate. But when it did come up, it did come up. But I feel like I was a little bit greedy for it. I feel like it'll probably benefit more just kind of on playing or playing it than digivolving into it. But once again, it's still a very solid card. You know, anything that's going to be playing cards out is going to be a massive benefit for you, in order for you to kind of control field and so forth. And you know, Vortex, as long as there's suspended Digimon out and a target that you can obviously Vortex into, you're going to be laughing right there. And then for the level 7, we just go in with the 2 Crimson mode. So this is where obviously a lot of people are running the Omnion X-Antibody, which kind of makes sense right there. There was definitely some times in the tournament which I wish, God, I could see that foul swing. That card would do great right now. Unfortunately, I was a bit like, I have the card. Once again, just lazy to just sleeve it up. I'm gonna keep it a book. So I didn't, and I thought, you know what, just keep it in archetype, and it served out really well. There was times where this kid did come up quite clutch. Came up clutch versus an Adventure. It came up clutch versus blue green Imperial in my 4th round. So it still put in the work and still claimed game pretty quickly. I feel like if I didn't actually have this, I probably may have had the game where for blue green Imperial probably might have gone to game 3. It's the fact that I could just kind of use this and just do what I need to do, just trash the last few cards, blitz for game, which is always welcomed. So that then concludes for the Megas, nothing more on that one. So let's go over to now the options. Options are once again clear cutter right here, nothing really fancy compared to, you know, the most lists that we see now in most videos. Is going to be then the offense training at 3. Once again, offense is just great. Just setting this up, just getting the core pieces of your combo is always going to be nice for you to kind of pop off. Then we do run the red memory boost. Once again, dig a little bit deeper. Why not? Treat yourself. Use the memory when you need to use it. Nothing more to explain on that. Then scramble. Scramble always comes clutch because maximizing your combo plays whilst ensuring that you can clap back is going to be fantastic. Once again, I feel like because I didn't run the rush deal, I could have got more value off this. But once again, we learn, and I learned not to be lazy and just, you know, re-sleeve cards ready for a tournament. And then we do simply run the 2 proto X-Antibodies, which, well, the X-Antibodies proto form. Once again, solid card, came clutch, really helps in terms of recursion. I don't run the EX9 X-Antibody. It is a solid card, and I'm definitely leaning towards maybe running a cheeky one-off of that, just because sometimes you do want to swing, you do want to kind of, you know, do a little bit of a pseudo blitz into the opponent and evo up your line, and then effectively, you know, I can do more damage output when I do go into the Gallantmon X-Antibody. All that shenanigans. I know my boy Jordan swears by it, and I've been clapped quite a few times by his variant right there, which does use the EX9 X-Antibody. So I can see me kind of, you know, maybe boosting that up to 3. Well, not this, but the overall X-Antibody up to 3. Maybe just the one of the AX9, but I do value this just because of that, you know, getting something back into security, making sure that maybe I could survive another turn whilst then recurring a piece from my stack, which is pretty prevalent in order for you to kind of clap back if needed. So that concludes that for the options. Now, Tamers, like I say, pretty much discovered. So we do run the 2 of the memory setter. I know a lot of lists actually run 3 of this. I feel like sometimes if you just have 1, that will do. That will do completely. It's great, don't get wrong, you know, having the option to raid is great in particular matchups, but sometimes you just don't need to raid. You really don't need to raid because you've either deleted the target that you're actually going to that you could possibly raid into just off of your main effects and so forth. But you know, it is another way to form of blitz because of the, you know, this Digimon attacks a player is always good. Then we do run the Blitz Staccato EX2 at 3. The reason why I like this still is because, once again, I think that Blitz is just not necessarily, it's not tied to anything. It's just, you're just blitzing. Whether you're rolling, you blitz, banging. That's absolutely fine. The memory manipulation does come up quite nicely. Depending on how many you've got, you want to be managing yourself to kind of get to that 0 in order for you to be, you know, unaffected by the opponent's effects or Digimon effects. Really comes up quite clutch, and I feel like this is what that helps in that sense, depending on how many you get out. Yeah, I feel like this, I remember at the start of when we got the new reveals that people was kind of like sacking this one off, where I'm like, I feel like this is still pretty relevant in terms of its use application. Like, this is a nice to have when it's out. Being comfortable at 3 is fantastic in Gallant, but ensuring that you just have blitz means that you're just doing maximum damage output all the time whilst being memory efficient, or you can manipulate your memory to not, you know, give the opponent too much memory depending on the action that you're doing. But that concludes that for the Tamers and the deck profile. Let me know what you think in the comments. So there you have it, guys, the Gallantmon list that I took to the event and managed to get first place. So what do I think to the overall list as a whole? To be honest, the list is pretty much well discovered amongst the community. There's nothing special in terms of the list. Obviously, the only difference is that in this day and age, there's a lot of tweaks that a lot of people have applied. I know that people are running X-Antibody Omnimon in there, which obviously makes a lot of sense. The card is omni strong and very powerful. I think if you are using X-Antibody BT9, I think that's where the use case of that actually comes in quite nicely. But because I'm not, I just kind of kept it pretty basic and just lent towards the in-archetype stuff and didn't really go fancy with it. You know, as I highlighted that before, I didn't really necessarily tweak the list beforehand. I just went in there with how it was kind of built. The only thing that obviously I did tweak was not actually running the War Gallantmon Ace, just because there's a lot of source strip going on, and I feel like I don't want to give the opponent any form of leverage and value off of my stack. So I'm like, nope, sack that off. We just make it pretty much aceless, apart from me being at my Crimson mode ace when necessary. But the thing that really just makes Gallantmon is the War Gallantmon X-Antibody. Like, that card just goes hard. Like, without that in stack, you notice a massive difference from being quite a slow game versus to being quite an efficient game, and you're pretty much wrapped up in around about 30 minutes and you're pretty much cruising, treating yourself to a drink, and also just vibing with the fellow community at the event. So it's a massive difference in regards to having that card in, having that nice protection there as well is always welcomed. I think on top of that, the change that I probably would do was actually run a Rush Geel. I think Rush Geel definitely would have come up quite clutch in quite a few of my games, just because I didn't necessarily sometimes have a way to finish out. If I didn't obviously run the Omnimon X-Antibody and obviously have that kind of pseudo rush, then effectively I was just kind of leaning on me just performing my standard combo and wrapping up quite nicely, which worked on the day. But depending on a larger scale tournament, you may need to have that form of like other strategy / play line to go down in order for you to kind of get that dub. It can kind of hinder you that way. So that's probably the only change I would change out of the list. Maybe I think Medieval is one of those cards where it's good, depending on the application. I feel like I was using it wrong. I feel like Digivolve into it wasn't great because I'd lose my stack if they could out it. hard slamming it never necessarily had a time where hard slamming it would have been effective, or had enough bodies that were unsuspended in order for me to suspend to play it out for reduced costs. So that's why I could say maybe the BT13 Gallantmon may have been better in my particular run, but I still managed to, you know, be successful in the run of the cards that I did run. So it really just depends on, you know, now I'm looking at it and versus at the time, yeah, probably BT13 Gallant would have been better, but regardless, Medieval did come up, and at times it did help, but at times I did get punished for using it. But it is what it is, right? But minus that, all around pretty smooth. Happy to get my X-Antibodies, which was nice. I think getting additional X-Antibody was a glorious surprise. So I do massively thank the Vault 4 team for hosting an amazing event. It was fun. The fact that everyone walked away with probably one of the best prizing, which was the actual X-Antibody out of them all. The Cool Boy was a nice additional chef's kiss, but the winner card, I'm not gonna lie, they could have chose someone else. They could have really chose someone else, but it is what it is. But guys, if you enjoyed the video, smash it with like a standard. Stay safe, stay fly, and I'll catch you in the next one. That's Buddy Dread, off the mic.